I'm Byron Neslen. I've got a fine art degree in photography and minor in biology from Arizona State University. I worked for corporate America for 32 years, which wasn't doing my art. I did that on the side. I worked for a company called Fry's Food Stores, which is also Kroger in your part of the country. So I did that. And then for the last almost 7 years, I've been doing horse shows full time. I've been published in Arizona Highways a number of times, especially just lately. And when I went to school, that was one of the things that there were certain photographers I thought, uh, certain photographers like portraiture or landscape that caught the spirit of the. There's a great photograph of, I think it's Paul Strand, who caught a great photograph of J.P. Morgan, and J.P. Morgan was not flattered by the image. He hated the image. I could be wrong on who shot it, but it was one of those photographers. But I think it was Paul Strand. But it captures the essence of J.P. Morgan, and part of it, he's sitting in a chair, kind of similar to what I am, a little bit. But the way the light is hitting him and his expression on his face, it looks like he's holding a knife in his hand. So it's really, and it I think it captures the essence of the man, and to me, that's what a good portrait or a good landscape captures, that essence of that person. So, I mean, it's
Yeah.
something I've always thought makes a great photograph, and not necessarily the smiling images that people think make great images of a person. I don't. To me, that isn't a great image. Particularly, it can be, but it's not necessarily. So that's something I've always tried to capture the spirit and maybe capture some of the essence of that particular scene or that animal, you know. So, and as far as like the animals, I think animals sense things about people that uh, we may sense it, but we kind of dismiss it. Where animals are more intuitive and sometimes, and I think they can sense if a person likes them or is more of an animal person. And I think that's why I've gotten some of the animal shots that I've got, because I do like animals, and so I think that helps. And I think they are intuitive as far as that. And then going out a lot and shooting. So I mean, I go out. I mean, I was out yesterday. I didn't shoot a single shot. I was up at Sedona, Arizona. I didn't shoot a single image yesterday. But sometimes you don't, and sometimes you get a lot of really neat images. But you have to go out a lot. When I bought my first camera, I never thought I was going to be doing this full time. It wasn't something. Uh, I think I was going to go into the sciences and that, and I guess somehow I was supposed to be doing what I'm doing instead of what I'm doing now. So I just had a real affinity for shooting photography, and it just seemed like the more I did it, the more I enjoyed it, and the more it seemed like I had a natural talent for that. But maybe also because I guess practice makes perfect too, you know. So I think there was a number of things that, and I love the outdoors. I mean, I can't think of a better occupation than what I'm doing right now. I mean, I'm out in the middle of nowhere, and I get to see some beautiful scenery that most people do not get to see. And I guess in some ways, I'm paying homage to the creator that created it all. You know, just the beauty of the landscape, and some of the landscapes like the Sonoran Desert. I first started taking photographs of the mountains and the here in Arizona, and I wasn't too hipped on the Sonoran Desert, but the more and I grew up here, so I wasn't a big fan of the Sonoran Desert. But the more I was out in it, the more I felt like I needed to document the Sonoran Desert, and the more I've been in it, the prettier it's gotten. So I originally started out in the mountains, and I still love the mountains here in Arizona and Colorado and Utah, but the Sonoran Desert has become one of my favorite subjects because it's actually quite beautiful, and there's a lot of wildlife and a lot of plants and animals that are unique to this area that are not found anyplace else in the world. I originally started out using film, 4x5 and medium format film cameras, and I think having that as a background to digital photography, uh, I wouldn't go. I wouldn't have missed that. I think it really trains your eye. It slows you down, and so now when I'm shooting digitally, I put the camera on a tripod. I think I try to be very. I try to use those same principles as trying to slow it down, except for wildlife. Wildlife has its own. Either you're shooting a whole bunch or you're sitting, because it depends on what the animal's doing. But and then when I went to school, I was taught about Ansel Adams, and I think a lot of his. Um, he wanted to be a concert pianist at one time in his life, and he made the statement that the negative is the score and the print is the performance, and I think that to me says a lot about how 50% of the image is shooting it, and then the other 50% is how you edit that image, either in the darkroom or doing it digitally in the digital darkroom. Has a lot because you're interpreting that image and you're trying to tell a story with that image and you're trying to lead the viewer's eye into that image so that way they excuse me, you're a storyteller and you're trying to tell them what's the most important things in that photograph, and you're trying to draw their eye to that, and some of the areas that are not as important you're trying to you're trying to keep the eye away from those areas. So I mean by highlighting certain areas, lightening certain areas, darkening certain areas, you're kind of leading the person through that image, so they your I guess somewhat maybe your interpretation of that image. Oh, it's really difficult to say what my favorite subject is. I mean, uh, most of my career was the landscapes. The wildlife became uh, probably the last 15 years. I really started shooting wildlife and have gotten quite a bit better at that. But I mean, I enjoy shooting the fall. I I really enjoyed like the north rim of the Grand Canyon. That's probably one of my favorite areas, of the state of Arizona. But I mean, there's some beautiful country in Colorado and southern Utah, like Zion National Park. So that's kind of like saying which is your favorite child or your favorite dog or cat. Enjoy a lot of the southern Arizona, which I didn't photograph as much. You know, I guess it's being an artist or being a photographer. You kind of live in the when you're out photographing, you live that moment to its fullest. Where a lot of occupations, you're trying to think ahead of, well, I'm trying to, like when I was working for Fry's, can't wait till the day gets over. And when I'm out shooting, I'm thinking about that particular image that I'm shooting at the time, or that particular animal, and how can I shoot it better, or anticipate what the lighting is going to do, or anticipate what that animal is going to do. And sometimes that works, and sometimes that doesn't. Sometimes you have preconceived notions, and and sometimes you need to throw those notions out because things change in the direction that you haven't anticipated. Like, well, a good example is the white horse that I have with the light going through. That I had seen other people stand there, and the horses weren't in the river, and I thought, well, I'll just stand here and see what happens. My preconceived notion would be it would be nice if a nice brown horse stands there. And I heard the horses fighting, and then the white horse stands in there because they had stirred up the dust and the light going through that. So, I mean, it was so much better than what I had originally thought of, you know, and I was really excited when that happened. Challenge is you have to spend a lot of time out in the field. I mean, that's one thing I've found. Just to go out there and think you're going to get the image the first time you go out there, occasionally that happens. I mean, when I was in Colorado, I got a beautiful shot of maroon bells. That was the first time I went there, and I got a beautiful image. But that's the exception. The rule is you have to spend a lot of time. I've spent a lot of time, like on the North Rim of the Grand Canyon, and I've gotten some nice images. But I felt really this last year. I went in August and spent 9 days, and I got two or three exceptional images. But I think part of it was I had put in my time, or like with the Salt River horses or the owls. The owls I probably spent 2 years ago, I think 2 or 3 years ago, 100 hours on owl nests, just sitting on owl nests and just waiting for the owls to do something. And I probably got 5 or 6 images that I think are really good. But I mean, spending all that time with the horses, uh, going out 2 or 3 times a week for 2 or 3 months, and I still go out and shoot the horses to get the few images that I think are exceptional. So I mean, you spend a lot of time, and a lot of times you don't get anything. You know, sometimes like when I've gone out to shoot horses, you don't even see a single horse, or you see, you walk around in the Sonoran Desert looking for those horses, and then you walk back to your vehicle, and then there's a horse in the parking lot, and that's right at dusk. So I mean, the, or or you're thinking about a great sunset shot, and like last night, I stayed out there and I was thinking, well, maybe that possibly could be a sunset shot with the buttes, but nothing happened. It was really kind of overcast, and I was just hoping for that light to peek through. So, I mean, you get you know, a lot of disappointments, but if you keep going out, eventually, you get reported with some really great images that you hadn't anticipated on, you know. So that's the challenges, and I guess the rewards is uh, knowing you've got something, and then other people that buy your work, really connect with it is a reward, or it being published. And instead of working for someone else, I mean, maybe I don't make the money I do now, but when I was working for Fry's, but I'm much happier because I'm doing what I want to do. So, I mean, it just feels more in line with what I'm supposed to be doing than what I was doing. And hopefully, maybe those images will stay long past uh, my life, and show the beauty of. I mean, I know they talk about going to Mars and the beauty of that, but I look at this planet that we live on, and I think this is probably one of the prettiest planets uh, in the universe. I mean, and especially in the solar system, when you consider all the life forms and the beauty that this little tiny rock has on it, compared to some of the other planets in just in our own solar system. I think the Earth is probably the prettiest planet. Maybe I'm a little biased, but you know, even from space, it looks like it's one of the prettiest planets. You know, even though it may not be the biggest planet. So my goal is to make a living with my photography, where it's a little more successful than what I am not right now. But I don't need to be rich. I just want to do what I'm doing. You know, having uh, tons of money isn't. I just want to do what I'm doing right now. You know, I so I guess that's my goal. You know, um, shots. Those are coming all the time. I mean, I get ideas to go out and shoot, and it just seems like there's more ideas than there's time in the day. You know, I just don't. You know, when I retired from Fry's, I thought I was going to have all this time, and there's not enough time, and doing art fairs seems like that takes a lot out. But I enjoy doing that. But it's when I get done doing, like I just did a show at and it was a successful one at Prescott in the courthouse, but it seemed like the day or the day after, I'm just exhausted. I don't feel like doing anything, and I just wish physically I could, you know, didn't have that constraint. I hope they see the spirit of the scene or the animal, and see its unique beauty or spirit, and that it helps bring a little piece of that into their lives and into their homes, where they can, because they may not be able to experience the things I experience. And so maybe a little bit of that is able to, they can experience that, you know, maybe and I've had people come in my booth and say, that I'm extremely lucky because I get to see all these places and they don't. I've had people say that. So maybe when they do purchase that, a little bit of that is able to go into their home.